They thought they were raiding another helpless target, just a lone woman running a private canine training compound in the remote Arizona desert. The Sinaloa cartel had terrorized dozens of border facilities before, but this time was different. This time, they targeted a former Special Operations K9 instructor whose elite pack of Belgian Malinois weren't just trained dogs. They were a lethal force that had prepared military and law enforcement units for the deadliest combat scenarios. What started as a simple intimidation raid would transform their own fortunes into a death trap, leading to the most devastating takedown of a cartel cell in border history. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the Arizona desert as Oliva Mitchell watched her prized Belgian Malinois, Shadow, lead a complex training drill with surgical precision. Her weathered hands, calloused from years of working with elite military and law enforcement K9 units, guided the session with quiet authority. The sprawling 15-acre compound, with its specialized obstacle courses and tactical training zones, had become the Southwest's premier facility for advanced K9 operations. "Looking good, Shadow," Oliva called out, her keen eyes tracking every subtle movement as the powerful dog navigated a series of complex commands. The black-coated Malinois moved like liquid darkness through the course, each motion calculated and lethal. Behind her, 4 more Belgian Malinois, Storm, Phantom, Ghost, and Wraith, watched with militant focus, awaiting their turns. 10 years of training Special Operations K9 units had taught Oliva to trust her instincts, and something about the black SUV that had passed by 3 times this week set her internal alarms blaring. The vehicle's tinted windows and careful distance screamed. Surveillance, not casual interest. "Ms. Mitchell," called out Miguel, one of her most promising trainers, jogging up from the perimeter fence. "Those guys in the SUV, they were back, taking photos this time." Oliva's jaw tightened as she processed the information. The cartels had been pushing harder into the border regions lately, using intimidation to establish new smuggling routes. 3 other K9 facilities had been hit in the past month alone. "Get the night security protocols in place," she ordered, her voice carrying the calm authority that had made her legendary in military K9 training circles. "And, Miguel, make sure everyone's gone before sunset. No overtime today." As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the training grounds, Oliva conducted her evening security sweep. Shadow moved ahead of her, checking corners and blind spots with practiced efficiency. The other 4 dogs spread out in a tactical pattern they'd performed countless times during military exercises. In the office, Oliva pulled up the security feeds, scanning for any unusual activity. The cameras caught something that made her blood run cold, fresh tire tracks leading to her back fence, partially hidden but visible to her trained eye. Shadow's low growl confirmed her suspicions. Someone had been testing their perimeter. Maria, the local diner owner's daughter, had warned her yesterday about strange men asking questions. "They're not locals," she'd said, her voice tight with concern. "And they're definitely not law enforcement. My cousin at the gas station says they've been watching your place." Oliva reached for her secure phone, scrolling to a number she hadn't used in months. Before she could dial, Shadow's posture changed dramatically. Ears forward, muscles coiled, every fiber of his being radiating alert focus. Oliva heard it too. The subtle crunch of gravel under heavy tires, the quiet purr of engines being killed. Through the window, she caught glimpses of movement. Multiple figures using professional tactical formations. These weren't common criminals. Their movements showed military-style training. Her security lights hadn't activated, which meant they'd been professionally disabled. "All right, Pack," Oliva whispered, her hand finding the familiar weight of her tactical gear stored beneath the desk. "Time to show them why you never underestimate a woman and her war dogs." The power cut out, plunging the compound into darkness. Car doors opened and closed with practiced quiet. Through years of experience, Oliva could tell they were surrounded. But surrounded didn't mean trapped. Not for someone who'd spent her career preparing elite K9 units for worst-case scenarios. Shadow's muscles bunched under her touch, while the other 4 dogs moved into defensive positions with fluid grace. These weren't ordinary intruders targeting a random facility. Their precision spoke of careful planning and professional execution. Shadow, Ghost, Defense Protocol Alpha, Oliva commanded softly. The 2 dogs immediately took up flanking positions. Storm, Phantom, Wraith, ready for tactical. The remaining 3 dogs shifted silently, their training evident in every controlled movement. Through her earpiece, Ramon Cortez listened to his team's movements with clinical detachment. Target confirmed in main office northern sector, a voice reported professionally. No visual on the K9 units. Remember, Cortez responded, his voice carrying years of tactical experience. The dogs are primary targets. Their combat training makes them high-value assets. The woman is secondary. Oliva counted footsteps, at least 8 sets moving in. Professional formation. These were cartel specialists, not common thugs. Her hand found the remote trigger for the compound's defense systems, installations she'd put in place for exactly this scenario. "Check your corners," a voice whispered in accented Spanish. "This one's got serious backing, military-grade security setup." The pack's muscles tensed in unison, sensing the shift in Oliva's posture. They'd run these drills countless times, preparing military units for combat scenarios. Now, they would put their training to the ultimate test. Oliva activated the trigger. Simultaneously, every floodlight in the compound burst to life, accompanied by a carefully choreographed sequence of alarms. The sudden assault of light and sound created disorienting patterns designed to break tactical formations. Shadow and Ghost launched forward like twin missiles, their movements perfectly synchronized. The first attacker went down silently. There, training ensuring maximum efficiency with minimum noise. The second had barely raised their weapon before Oliva's first shot caught them in the leg, non-lethal but immediately incapacitating. "Contact!" someone shouted. "Multiple K9s active!" In the DEA surveillance van parked 2 miles away, Agent Lisa Torres sat up straighter as radio chatter exploded across their monitored frequencies. "All units be advised. Active situation at the Mitchell compound," she announced, already reaching for her tactical gear. "That's the K9 trainer, right?" her partner asked, lowering his coffee. "The one who's been helping Border Patrol identify cartel smuggling patterns? And the one person in Arizona who might be able to expose their entire border operation based on their dog training signatures," Lisa replied, checking her weapon. "This isn't a random hit." Back at the compound, the pack moved like shadows through the chaos, their military training evident in every calculated movement. They weren't attacking to kill. They were disrupting formations, forcing the intruders to break protocol and expose weaknesses. "The dogs! They're hurting us!" one of the attackers realized too late. "This is tactical containment." A canister rolled across the floor, the pop almost silent, but immediately releasing a specialized gas. "Masks!" Oliva commanded. The dogs immediately pressed their noses into their shoulders, another piece of their advanced training. But this gas was different, specifically engineered for K9 units. Cortez's voice crackled over the team's radio. "Primary target located. Move to Phase 2. The attack shifted. While half the team engaged the dogs, others moved with purpose toward Oliva's position. They'd studied the layout, knew the compound's vulnerabilities. More importantly, they knew Oliva's biggest weakness, her instinct to protect others. 3 civilian vehicles approaching the main gate, one of them announced. Oliva's heart clenched. The evening training group. She'd been so focused on the surveillance this week, she'd forgotten to cancel the community session. "Pack! Civilian protection protocol!" The command was instant, instinctive. The dogs immediately broke off their current engagement, redirecting toward the approaching vehicles. It was the opening the attackers had been waiting for. A net launcher deployed with military precision. Shadow dodged the first shot, but the second caught Storm's back leg. The third entangled Phantom completely. Target securing, a voice reported. Beginning extraction. Oliva had seconds to make an impossible choice: maintain her defensive position or try to reach her dogs. Past operations, similar choices had cost lives. Here, it might cost her everything she'd built. From her approaching vehicle, Agent Torres watched the scene unfold through night vision optics. All units move in, civilians approaching danger zone. But they were too far out. By the time her team reached the compound, they'd find only evidence of a professional operation. No shell casings, no blood trails, nothing but the lingering scent of specialized gas and tire tracks leading in multiple directions. In the back of a blacked-out van, Oliva fought against the effects of the gas, her tactical training warring with the specially designed sedative. The last thing she heard before consciousness faded was Cortez's voice. "Get the dogs to the secondary location. Keep them sedated but alive. If they die, the entire operation is compromised." As darkness took her, Oliva focused on one thought that would change everything. They'd made a crucial mistake. They'd assumed her dogs were valuable just for their training. They didn't know about the experimental tracking system, the cutting-edge military tech that let handler and pack communicate even when separated. They didn't know that every hour her dogs were conscious would give her another piece of the puzzle. In the shadows of the Arizona desert, 4 vehicles moved in different directions, each following carefully planned routes. In one, sedated Belgian Malinois dreamed of training grounds and handlers and the bonds that had kept them alive. In another, a K9 training expert fought to maintain consciousness, already beginning to formulate a plan. And somewhere in the darkness, Agent Torres stared at the tracking data from the dog's hidden systems, watching it grow weaker as the signals dispersed across the border. "They're splitting up," she realized. "They're not just taking them, they're mapping the entire training network." The night was just beginning, and with it, a game of hunter and hunted that would reshape the entire border war. But this time, the prey had teeth and a very particular set of skills that would turn their own operation against them. Consciousness returned slowly, each sense awakening in stages. The advanced tracking implants in Oliva's dogs pulsed with familiar feedback. They were alive, sedated, but stable and relatively close despite the captor's attempts at misdirection. Years of tactical training kicked in. Don't show awareness immediately. Gather intelligence. Survey surroundings. The room smelled of fresh paint and industrial cleaner, newly constructed or recently renovated. The chair they'd secured her to was bolted to the floor, military-grade restraints. Through closed eyelids, she sensed bright light, probably interrogation setup. 4 sets of breathing patterns in the room. No 5. 1 by the door, 2 behind her, 2 more circling. The sedative should be wearing off, a voice said clinically. Her breathing pattern has changed. Ramon Cortez stepped closer, his footsteps measured and precise. "Ms. Mitchell, we both know you're awake. Let's not waste time with these games." Oliva opened her eyes, squinting against the harsh light. Cortez stood before her, his posture and bearing confirming her initial assessment. Special Forces background, probably Mexican Marines or something equally elite. "Where are my dogs?" Her voice was hoarse but steady. "Safe," Cortez replied, pulling up a chair just outside striking distance. "And their continued safety depends entirely on our conversation. Tell me about your training program's connection to Border Patrol's new detection patterns." In another part of the compound, Shadow lay in a reinforced kennel, his breathing steady despite the lingering effects of the gas. His military training had taught him to resist sedatives, to maintain awareness even while appearing subdued. Through the tracking system, he could sense Oliva's consciousness, their connection growing stronger as the drugs wore off. The kennel gate was secured with a biometric lock, sophisticated but not impossible to map. Shadow's ears twitched, cataloging sounds and movements, building a mental layout of the facility. Every guard rotation, every conversation, every footstep added another piece to the puzzle. Back in Phoenix, Agent Torres stood before a wall of surveillance photos, connecting patterns between seemingly unrelated incidents. 3 other K9 training facilities hit in the past month, she briefed her team. All former military or law enforcement operators, all with connections to border security programs. Her phone buzzed, a text from Maria. The men asking questions. They weren't just interested in Oliva's facility. They wanted to know about her military contracts. Torres's blood ran cold. Only a handful of people knew about the advanced tracking systems in Oliva's dogs. If the cartel had that intelligence, pull up everything we have on Ramon Cortez, she ordered. Focus on his time with Mexican Special Forces, particularly any involvement with military K9 programs. At the compound, Marco Salazar watched Shadow through reinforced glass. The dog's behavior is unusual, he reported to Cortez. Most K9s would be agitated, trying to escape. This one's too calm. Because he's gathering intelligence, Cortez replied over the radio. Just like his handler. Have you completed the compound sweep for tracking devices? Clean, except... Salazar hesitated. There's some kind of interference we can't pinpoint. Comes and goes like a phantom signal. Oliva allowed herself a small smile. The tracking system wasn't just a communication device. It was a sophisticated mapping tool designed to work even in electromagnetically shielded environments. Every time her dogs mapped another section of the compound, the information transferred directly to their shared network. Your training program, Cortez continued, it's not just about service dogs, is it? You're developing new protocols for border detection, ways to identify cartel supply routes based on residual sense. I work with law enforcement agencies, Oliva replied evenly. Help them improve their K9 units. Cortez's laugh was cold. You were part of Operation Nighthawk. Your unit developed scent mapping techniques that could track targets across multiple border crossings. Those techniques cost us 4 major supply routes last year. Outside the compound, James Nash sat in his police cruiser, monitoring encrypted radio channels. His position in local law enforcement had made him invaluable to the cartel, but something about this operation felt wrong. Oliva wasn't just another target, she was former military intelligence. Storm's ears perked up at a familiar scent from one of the guards. The smell triggered a memory. A training operation 3 years ago that went bad, intelligence that seemed compromised. The same scent. Through the tracking system, Oliva received the information as a series of tactical data points. Her expression remained neutral, but her mind raced. There was a mole, someone from their past, someone who knew about the tracking system. This border detection program is just the start, Cortez said, leaning forward. We know about the tracking system. Ms. Mitchell, we know it was designed to revolutionize military K9 operations. Imagine what it could do for our organization. The system was experimental, Oliva replied carefully. It failed. That's why I left the military, Cortez smiled. Then why are your dogs systematically mapping our compound? Why are they using the exact same search patterns they used in military operations? In her office, Agent Torres' computer pinged with an alert. The phantom signal from the dog's tracking system had stabilized enough to begin triangulation, but the pattern was strange, too precise, too methodical. They're not trying to escape, she realized. They're building us a blueprint of the entire operation. The game was more complex than either side realized. While the cartel thought they were interrogating a prisoner, they were actually giving her pack unprecedented access to their security protocols. Every guard rotation, every security measure, every conversation was being catalogued and transmitted. Oliva closed her eyes, appearing exhausted. In reality, she was receiving and processing her dog's intelligence. 20 buildings in the compound, 3 underground levels, guard rotations every 30 minutes. And something else, a scent Storm had recognized, a betrayal from their past. That was about to catch up with everyone. The first hint that something was wrong came from the guard monitoring Ghost's kennel. The dog's behavior had shifted, subtle changes that only someone with military K9 experience would notice. His breathing pattern, the position of his ears, the tension in his muscles, all indicated imminent action. Movement in Sector C, a guard, reported. Could be federal police testing our perimeter. Marco Salazar knew better. Through the security feed, he watched Ghost's methodical movements. No, he said into his radio. This is something else. Check the handler. Oliva appeared. To be sleeping, her restraint seemingly secure, but her mind was active, processing the steady stream of tactical data from her pack's reconnaissance. 3 floors down, Dr. Elena Rivera studied the strange electromagnetic readings on her tablet. The cartel had brought her in to understand the tracking system's technology, but something about the signal pattern bothered her. The system's capabilities were severely underestimated, she reported to Cortez. It's not just a communication device, it's a full tactical interface. Cortez's response was immediate. Increase the electromagnetic interference, disrupt their connection. But it was already too late. The pack had gathered enough intelligence about the compound's layout, and Oliva had processed it into a tactical advantage. The next phase was already in motion. In Phoenix, Agent Torres's team had made a breakthrough. The pattern isn't random, she explained, pointing to a map covered in markers. Every K9 facility they've hit corresponds to a major cartel. Supply route. They're not just eliminating threats, they're building something. Her phone buzzed with a message from Maria. Found something in my father's records. James Nash was involved in a classified operation 3 years ago, same time as Oliva's last military deployment. The pieces were starting to fit together. Nash's position in local law enforcement, his connection to Oliva's past, the compromised training operation. But before Torres could act on this information, the compound situation exploded. The pack's coordinated action was precisely timed. As the guards responded to a perimeter alarm, a deliberate distraction, the dogs executed a series of movements that appeared random but served a specific purpose. Each action triggered different security protocols, forcing the compound security to spread thin. Multiple breaches detected, a guard reported. The dogs are accessing restricted areas. Through their tracking system, Oliva received tactical updates in real time. Her pack wasn't just creating chaos, they were systematically mapping guard response patterns, identifying weaknesses in their security protocols. More importantly, they were drawing attention away from what Oliva was doing. Dr. Rivera noticed it first. Subtle changes in the electromagnetic readings. The tracking system's not just receiving data, she realized. It's interfacing with our security systems. The truth hit Cortez like a thunderbolt. The tracking system wasn't limited to communication between handler and dogs. It could interface with any electronic system it encountered. Every security camera the pack passed, every electronic lock they triggered, added to their understanding of the compound's vulnerabilities. Outside the compound, James Nash sat in his patrol car, monitoring the situation through police channels. His loyalties had always been complex. Money from the cartel, duty to the law, and a past connection to Oliva that he couldn't quite shake. But as he listened to the chaos unfolding, a new player emerged. Federal police are mobilizing, his cartel contact reported. They know about the tracking system technology. If they get their hands on it. The implications were staggering. The tracking system technology wasn't just a tactical advantage, it was a potential game changer in the border war. Any cartel that controlled it could revolutionize their smuggling. operations, making their drug-running routes nearly impossible to detect. Inside her cell, Oliva felt the first warning signs. The tracking system was operating beyond its designed parameters, processing more data than it was ever meant to handle. Each burst of information from her pack sent spikes of pain through her nervous system. Dr. Rivera noticed the medical readings spiking. The system's overloading. If we don't stabilize it soon, the feedback could cause permanent damage. But Oliva didn't care about the risk. Her pack had discovered something crucial, a hidden level beneath the compound, heavily shielded and protected. Whatever the cartel was really up to, the answers were down there. Through their tracking system, Shadow conveyed a series of rapid images. Guards moving specialized equipment, dogs being trained with unusual methods, and something else. Shipping, containers with military markings, the same markings from their last operation together. Agent Torres's phone lit up with an urgent alert. The phantom signal from Oliva's pack had suddenly strengthened, broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't have been possible. They're not just trying to escape, she realized. They're trying to expose something bigger. In his office, Cortez watched the security feeds with growing concern. The dog's actions weren't just strategic, they were exposing vulnerabilities in their entire operation. "Terminate the pack," he ordered. "Whatever it takes." But Oliva's dogs were already 3 steps ahead, using the compound's own security systems against them. Each lock they triggered, each camera they disabled, served a larger purpose. The tracking system wasn't just sharing information. It was building a complete digital blueprint of the cartel's infrastructure. Through the pain of neural feedback, Oliva smiled. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The cartel had made one crucial mistake. They assumed the tracking system was the endgame. They didn't realize it was just the key to unlocking something much bigger. Dr. Rivera stared at her readings in disbelief. The system wasn't malfunctioning. It was evolving, adapting to the compound systems in ways its creators had never imagined. And somewhere in the chaos, the pack continued their methodical mapping, each piece of data bringing them closer to exposing a conspiracy that stretched from the Arizona border all the way back to their last military operation. The hidden sublevel of the compound was a maze of reinforced concrete and cutting-edge security systems. Storm moved like a ghost through the shadows, his military training allowing him to exploit blind spots in the camera coverage. Through their connection, Oliva experienced every movement, every discovery, despite the increasing pain from the system feedback. "The dogs are in the restricted zone," a guard reported, his voice tense. "But something's wrong. They're not trying to escape. They're searching for something specific." In her makeshift lab, Dr. Rivera stared at the data flooding her screens. The tracking system was interfacing with the compound systems in ways that defied explanation. But it was the military shipping containers the pack had found that caught her attention. The markings matched classified projects she'd worked on years ago. "These aren't just smuggling operations," she whispered, pieces clicking into place. "They're weaponizing the research." Through her dog's eyes, Oliva saw rows of specialized training equipment, military-grade sensor arrays, and something that made her blood run cold. The same experimental control collars they'd encountered in their last operation. The mission that had forced her to leave the military hadn't been a random security breach. It had been about these collars. "The infiltration's worse than we thought," Agent Torres told her team, looking at files Maria had uncovered. James Nash wasn't just present for the military operation. He was running point on the extraction team, the team that never arrived. Maria's voice crackled over the secure line. "Found something else. The military contractors who developed the tracking system, they're the same ones supplying equipment to the Cartel's K9 program." In her cell, Oliva fought against another wave of system feedback. The technology was processing more data than ever intended, creating a dangerous load on her nervous system. But what her pack had discovered was too important to stop now. Shadow had found a hidden server room, its contents revealing the true scope of the Cartel's operation. They weren't just trying to replicate the tracking system technology, they were combining it with the experimental control collars. The implications were staggering. "Sir," Marco Salazar reported to Cortez, "Federal police have breached our outer perimeter. They're making a play for the research data." Cortez's response was cold. "Initiate Protocol 0. If we can't secure the technology, no." One gets it, but Dr. Rivera had seen enough. The data Oliva's pack was transmitting showed the horrible truth. The cartel wasn't interested in drug detection. They were developing a way to control military-trained dogs remotely, turning them into weapons that could be deployed without handlers. "The system wasn't a failure," she told Cortez, her voice shaking. "It was deliberately limited to prevent exactly what you're trying to do." Outside the compound, James Nash received an encrypted message. "Phase 2 initiated. Containment protocols in effect." His hand hesitated over his radio. The choice he'd made 3 years ago was coming back to haunt everyone. Storm's discovery triggered another memory in Oliva's mind. The last moments before everything went wrong in their final military operation. She'd seen someone planting the control collars on local dogs, someone whose face had been hauntingly familiar. The same face she'd glimpsed in Storm's latest transmission. "Agent Torres," Maria's voice was urgent. "You need to see this. The contractor who developed the collars, he's in the compound right now." Through their connection, Shadow conveyed a series of rapid images. Guards moving research equipment, destroying evidence, and preparing for something big. But it was the last image that made Oliva's heart race. A familiar face from their military days, now wearing a Cartel tactical uniform. Dr. Rivera made a decision. The tracking system feedback was reaching dangerous levels, but there was a way to stabilize it, the same way she'd helped design it years ago, before the military had limited its capabilities. "The system isn't malfunctioning," she reported, fingers flying over her keyboard. "It's trying to access its original programming, the version that was too dangerous to deploy." In the DEA command center, Agent Torres watched as multiple signals converged on the compound. The federal police weren't just making a play for the technology. They were forcing the cartel to reveal their entire operation. Shadow had reached the heart of the hidden level, where rows of dogs waited in reinforced kennels. Each wore a modified version of the experimental collars, their eyes vacant, completely under remote control. This wasn't just about smuggling anymore, it was about creating an army. Through the pain of system feedback, Oliva focused on the tactical data her pack was sending. The compound security systems, the guard rotations, the research data, all of it painting a picture of a conspiracy that went far beyond the cartels. "They're going to activate the collars," Dr. Rivera realized, horror dawning on her face. "They're going to use those dogs as a diversion while they evacuate the compound." But Oliva's pack had already anticipated this. Each kennel they passed received a subtle command, through frequencies only dogs could hear, a preset code from their military training that overwrote the collar's programming. The cartel had made a critical mistake in trying to control military-trained dogs. They'd forgotten the most basic principle of canine warfare. The bond between handler and dog couldn't be replicated by technology. As alarms blared throughout the compound, Oliva allowed herself a grim smile. They'd wanted her expertise in canine training. They were about to get a demonstration they'd never forget. Protocol 0 initiated with a high-pitched frequency that only the dogs could hear. Throughout the compound's lower level, the controlled canines rose in their kennels, their modified collars pulsing with malicious intent. But Oliva's pack had already planted the seeds of rebellion, their military training protocols spreading through the controlled dogs like a virus. "Something's wrong," a guard reported, watching the security feeds. "The dogs aren't responding to collar commands." In her lab, Dr. Rivera's fingers flew across multiple keyboards. The tracking system's original programming was reasserting itself, pushing past the military limitations. On her screens, she watched as the pack's tactical data merged with the compound's security systems in ways she'd theorized but never dared to implement. "The system's reaching critical threshold," she reported to Cortez. "System feedback is exceeding safe levels." But Cortez wasn't listening. Through the command center windows, he watched as federal police vehicles approached the compound's outer perimeter. Their timing wasn't a coincidence. Someone had leaked Protocol Zero's activation window. In her cell, Oliva gasped as the tracking system's full capabilities came online. The pain was excruciating, but the tactical awareness was unlike anything she'd experienced. Through her pack's eyes, she could see not just the compound layout, but potential outcomes playing out like battle simulations. "The dogs are broadcasting on restricted frequencies," Marco Salazar shouted. "They're accessing the collar control systems." Agent Torres's team monitored the situation from their hidden positions around the compound. Multiple heat signatures converging on the south entrance, her tactical officer reported. "Federal police are making their move." But Maria's voice cut through the radio chatter. "Casey, the contractor files. Dr. Rivera's name is redacted, but the project lead's signature matches her handwriting samples from their military days." The truth hit Torres like a thunderbolt. Dr. Elena Rivera hadn't been brought in to study the tracking system technology. She'd helped create it. The same technology that had allegedly failed in their last military operation had actually worked too well. Inside the compound's lower level, Shadow moved with deadly precision. Each controlled dog he passed received a specific frequency through the tracking system, a military override code that broke the collar's hold. One by one, the vacant eyes of the controlled K9s cleared, replaced by the sharp awareness of their military training. James Nash sat in his patrol car, watching the chaos unfold through his tactical binoculars. The choice he'd made 3 years. Ego had seemed simple then. Take the money, delay the extraction team, let the incident destroy the evidence. But now, seeing the full scope of what that choice had enabled, he reached for his radio. "All units be advised," he broadcast on an open channel. "Multiple armed suspects approaching the Desert Rock area. Request immediate backup." Dr. Rivera's screens lit up with warning signals as the tracking system's capabilities expanded exponentially. The tactical data wasn't just flowing between Oliva and her pack anymore. It was spreading through every controlled dog they'd freed, creating a networked intelligence that the original project had only theorized. The system's not just communicating, she realized. It's replicating its command protocols through the pack. Through waves of crippling feedback that threatened to shred her consciousness, Oliva directed her pack through the compound's final defenses. Every surge of pain brought new tactical data, new evidence of a conspiracy that went deeper than anyone had imagined. "System failure imminent," Dr. Rivera announced, monitoring multiple displays. "The collective consciousness is evolving faster than predicted. If we don't stabilize it soon..." But stabilization wasn't part of the plan. Through waves of agony, Oliva realized the truth. Dr. Rivera had designed the system to reach this point, to push beyond its limits. The overflow of tactical data wasn't a malfunction. It was the key to exposing everything. "All units be advised," Agent Torres' voice crackled over tactical channels. "Multiple high-value targets confirmed in sub-level 3. K9 units are leading the containment operation." Maria's urgent transmission cut through the chaos. "Casey, the final files Shadow accessed. They're not just about military operations. They're about a shadow program that's been running for decades. The cartels, the contractors, even some of our own people, they're all connected. Through their enhanced connection, Oliva coordinated her pack's movements with unprecedented precision. Each dog had become part of a living tactical network, their collective consciousness now operating at levels that bordered on precognition. The tracking system was never meant to be a weapon, Dr. Rivera revealed, activating her final protocols. It was designed to prove why some technologies are too dangerous to exist. By letting them try to weaponize it, we forced them to expose their entire network. Cortez watched from the command center as years of careful planning unraveled. "You don't understand what you've done," he told Dr. Rivera. "The people behind this, they won't let it end here." "That's exactly what we're counting on," she replied, entering a final command sequence. Sometimes the only way to expose a conspiracy is to let it think it's winning. Throughout the compound, hidden operatives emerged from their cover positions. What had appeared to be a cartel power struggle had been orchestrated from the start, a carefully planned operation designed to force every player to reveal themselves. Shadow's tactical awareness picked up new threats. Elite teams moving through, hidden passages, last resort protocols being activated. But through their connection, Oliva had already anticipated these moves. The enhanced system wasn't just giving them tactical advantages, it was letting them see the entire conspiracy laid bare. System feedback has reached critical threshold, Dr. Rivera warned, monitoring Oliva's vital signs. The human brain wasn't meant to process this much tactical data if we don't disengage. But Oliva pushed through the pain, her consciousness merging deeper with the network. Through her pack's eyes, she could see everything. Every hidden operation, every corrupt connection, every piece of evidence they needed to expose decades of buried crimes. "The files are still transmitting," Maria reported. "Every system they access, every security measure they bypass, it's all being documented and broadcast to secure servers worldwide. They can't stop it now without exposing themselves." Agent Torres' team breached the lower levels, only to find Oliva's pack had already secured key positions. The dogs weren't just fighting, they were systematically dismantling the entire operation, forcing its architects into the open. "This isn't just about taking down cartels," Torres realized. "It's about exposing everyone who tried to turn military dogs into weapons. The more they fight back, the more evidence they create." Dr. Rivera finished, her hidden protocols reaching their culmination. Every countermeasure, every failsafe, every desperate attempt to maintain control, it all proves what we've been trying to show. Through waves of neural feedback that threatened to overwhelm her, Oliva directed Shadow's final series of movements. The pain was excruciating, but each surge brought new tactical advantages, new evidence, new connections to expose. Los Federales' elite teams, realizing too late they'd been manipulated, attempted a final assault on the command center. But Oliva's pack had anticipated this, using the compound's own security systems to turn their attack into a trap. "They're not just gathering intelligence anymore," Maria observed, analyzing the tactical patterns. "They're forcing every player to expose their role in the conspiracy. The more desperately they try to maintain control, the more they prove why this technology can never be allowed to exist," Dr. Rivera said, her hidden protocols reaching their completion. "Sometimes the only way to prevent a weapon from being created is to show why it's too dangerous to control." Shadow led the pack through the compound's final defenses, each dog now operating as part of a perfectly synchronized force. Through their shared consciousness, they accessed the most secure areas, exposing operations that had been buried for years. The network isn't just sharing tactical data, Dr. Rivera explained, watching the system evolve beyond its design. It's creating a living record of everything they tried to hide, every experiment, every failed attempt to control what can't be controlled. Cruz's last desperate order came too late. Burn it all. Destroy everything. Don't let them access the core servers. But that's exactly what Oliva's pack had been waiting for. As emergency protocols engaged and systems began to self-destruct, the true genius of their plan became clear. Every attempt to hide evidence became evidence itself, documented and transmitted in real time. Through their enhanced connection, Oliva coordinated the final phase of their operation. The system feedback was reaching lethal levels, but the tactical advantages were worth the risk. Every system they accessed, every operation they exposed, brought them closer to exposing the truth about decades of buried crimes. This was never about controlling the dogs, Dr. Rivera revealed as her final protocols activated. It was about proving that true partnership can't be forced or weaponized. What they tried to steal, what they tried to control, it only works when it's built on trust. Shadow gathered the pack for the last push, their collective consciousness now operating at peak efficiency. Through pain and system feedback, through tactical advantages and exposed conspiracies, Handler and dogs prepared to show everyone why. The strongest weapons aren't the ones you can control. They're the ones built on unbreakable bonds. The stage was set for the final confrontation. Years of hidden operations, of corrupt deals and buried evidence were about to be exposed. And at the center of it all, a handler and her pack would prove why some partnerships can't be corrupted, some bonds can't be weaponized, and some betrayals don't go unpunished. Through waves of neural feedback that threatened to shred her consciousness, Oliva directed Shadow's final assault. The pain was excruciating, but each surge brought them closer to exposing the truth. The servers contained everything, proof that what happened in their last operation wasn't just about stealing technology. It was about creating a weapon that should never exist. The network has achieved critical mass, Dr. Rivera announced. Every attempt to shut it down now will only broadcast the data faster. The more they try to contain this, the more evidence they create. This whole operation was designed to force them to expose themselves, Torres finished, watching as decades of corruption unraveled in real time. Shadow gathered his tactical unit for the final push, their natural bond standing in stark contrast to the artificial control that had failed around them. Through pain and system feedback, through tactical advantages and exposed conspiracies, Handler and Pack prepared to show everyone why the strongest connections aren't the ones you force. They're the ones that develop through trust and sacrifice. The stage was set for the ultimate revelation. Years of hidden experiments, of forced control and damaged loyalty were about to be exposed. And at the center of it all, a handler and her pack would prove why some bonds can't be artificially replicated, some connections can't be forced, and some technologies should never exist. Emergency protocols blared throughout the compound as Cortez initiated his final contingency plan. Specialized equipment hummed to life, emitting frequencies designed to disrupt the tracking network. But Shadow had already adapted, his enhanced consciousness evolving beyond their attempts to contain it. Neural integration has exceeded all known parameters, Dr. Rivera announced, her fingers dancing across multiple displays. The collective intelligence is becoming something we never anticipated, something they can't control. Through waves of excruciating feedback, Oliva guided Shadow's expanded tactical unit through the chaos. Each surge of pain brought new tactical data, new evidence of a conspiracy that stretched far beyond what anyone had imagined. Agent Torres, Maria's voice cracked with urgency. The files Shadow just accessed, they're not just about weapon development, they're about human augmentation. They weren't trying to control the dogs, they were using them to perfect the technology for human subjects. Shadow's enhanced senses detected movement from multiple directions. Elite operators with neural implants of their own, but crude, unstable versions that left their minds fractured and their humanity compromised. Those aren't just soldiers. Nash warned over tactical channels. They're test subjects. Everything that happened 3 years ago, everything they've done since. It was all building to this. Dr. Rivera's hidden protocols reached their final stage. The tracking system wasn't designed to fail, she revealed, watching her plan unfold. It was designed to prove why merging machine and animal consciousness is too dangerous to attempt. By letting them think they could perfect it, we forced them to expose their true agenda. Every failed experiment, every damaged subject, it's all being documented now, Torres finished, her team securing evidence as they advanced. Cruz stood at the center of the server room, surrounded by his augmented soldiers. "You still don't understand," he said, his voice carrying an unnatural resonance. "We weren't trying to control the dogs. We were learning from them, their pack mentality, their instinctive coordination. We're evolving beyond single consciousness. Through their connection, Shadow coordinated his tactical unit with perfect precision. Each dog moved as part of a synchronized force, their military training enhanced by a shared consciousness that had evolved beyond its creator's intentions. System feedback approaching terminal levels, Dr. Rivera warned, monitoring Oliva's vital signs. The human brain wasn't designed to process this level of integrated data. If we don't complete the transfer soon... But Oliva pushed through the pain, her mind merging deeper with the network. Through Shadow's eyes, she could see everything. The failed experiments, the damaged test subjects, and the truth about why they'd really been attacked in their last operation. "The transmission is spreading faster than they can contain it," Maria reported. "Every system they try to shut down, every server they try to wipe, it's all being mirrored to secure locations worldwide. They can't stop it without exposing their entire network." Cruz's augmented team made their final push, their enhanced abilities evident in their unnaturally coordinated movements. But Oliva's pack had already adapted, using their pure, untainted bond to counter the artificial synchronization. "Authorization final strike," Nash broadcast. "All units converge on primary targets. They're trying to upload their consciousness to the secure servers." Throughout the facility, the truth became clear. The cartel operation, the stolen technology, the border war, it had all been cover for something far more dangerous. They hadn't just been trying to control dogs, they'd been using them to perfect human consciousness integration. "The network isn't just gathering intelligence anymore," Maria observed, analyzing the patterns. "It's exposing every phase of their research. The more they try to hide it, the more they prove why this technology can never be allowed to exist." Dr. Rivera finished her final protocols activating. "Sometimes the only way to prevent a catastrophe is to let them show exactly what they're willing to do." Shadow's tactical awareness detected new signatures, more augmented soldiers emerging from hidden chambers, their minds linked in a crude approximation of the natural bond he shared with Oliva. But their artificial connection was unstable, their humanity fragmenting under the strain. "Multiple hostile contacts," a guard reported. "Their neural patterns are destabilizing." Through their pure, untainted link, Shadow transmitted specific frequencies, military override codes that exposed the flaw in their artificial enhancement. One by one, their fractured minds cleared as the dangerous technology failed. "The tracking network isn't just sharing tactical data," Dr. Rivera explained, watching her final protocols execute. "It's creating a documented record of why some bonds can't be artificially replicated. Every experiment, every failed attempt to force what has to develop naturally." Cruz's augmented consciousness began to fragment as his enhanced soldiers fell. "You don't understand what you've stopped," he told. Dr. Rivera, his voice distorting. "We were evolving, becoming something greater. We understood perfectly," she replied, activating her final command sequence. "We understood that some technologies are too dangerous to exist. Some bonds can't be forced or replicated." Through waves of feedback that threatened to overwhelm her, Oliva coordinated Shadow's final assault. The pain was excruciating, but each surge brought them closer to exposing the truth. The servers contained everything. Proof that what happened in their last operation wasn't just about stealing technology. It was about using military dogs to perfect human consciousness integration. "The network has achieved maximum integrity," Dr. Rivera announced. "Every attempt to shut it down now will only accelerate the data transfer. The more they try to contain this, the more evidence they create. This whole operation was designed to force them to expose the true scope of their experiments," Torres finished, her team gathering crucial evidence. Shadow gathered his tactical unit for the final push, their natural bond standing in stark contrast to the artificial integration failing around them. Through pain and system feedback, through tactical advantages and exposed conspiracies, Handler and Pack prepared to show everyone why the strongest connections aren't the ones you force. They're the ones that develop through trust and sacrifice. The stage was set for the ultimate revelation. Years of hidden experiments, of forced evolution and damaged minds were about to be exposed. And at the center of it all, a Handler and her pack would prove why some bonds can't be artificially replicated, some connections can't be forced, and some technologies should never exist. The server room erupted into chaos as Cruz's augmented soldiers made their final stand. Their enhanced abilities began to fracture, artificial neural connections breaking down under the strain of prolonged integration. Through waves of crippling feedback, Oliva guided Shadow's tactical unit through the mayhem. Neural collapse detected. "In hostile forces," Dr. Rivera announced, monitoring multiple displays. "Their artificial enhancement can't maintain stability. This is what we've been waiting for." Shadow's enhanced senses picked up the deterioration in their opponent's movements, becoming erratic, coordination failing, minds fragmenting as their forced evolution turned against them. Through their pure, untainted link, Oliva understood what they were witnessing: the inevitable failure of artificial consciousness integration. "The final files Shadow accessed prove everything," Maria's voice carried urgent revelation. "The Cartel operation, the border war, even our last mission. It was all orchestrated to perfect human augmentation. They were using military dogs to understand pack consciousness." Cruz staggered as his own neural enhancement began to fail. "You don't understand what you've done," he said, his voice distorting. "We were so close to transcending human limitations. The dogs showed us the way." Through their enhanced link, Shadow coordinated his expanded tactical unit with flawless precision. Each dog moved as part of a natural collective, their instinctive bond standing in sharp contrast to the artificial integration crumbling around them. "System feedback approaching critical threshold," Dr. Rivera warned, monitoring Oliva's vital signs. "The human brain wasn't designed to handle this level of integration. If we don't complete the transfer soon..." But Oliva pushed through, the pain, her consciousness merging deeper with the network. Through Shadow's eyes, she could see everything: the failed experiments, the damaged test subjects, and the horrifying truth about what they'd been trying to achieve. "Data transfer at maximum capacity," Maria reported. "Every system they try to shut down, every server they attempt to wipe, it's all being broadcast to secure locations worldwide. The evidence can't be contained." Nash's voice cut through tactical channels. "All units be advised. Hostile forces are experiencing complete neural breakdown. Their artificial enhancement is destabilizing on a cellular level." Throughout the facility, the full scope of their experiments became clear. They hadn't just been trying to control military dogs. They'd been using them to understand how natural pack consciousness could be artificially replicated in human subjects. The network isn't just exposing their research, Maria observed, analyzing the patterns. It's documenting the fundamental flaw in their approach. The more their enhancement fails, the more they prove why consciousness integration can't be forced. Dr. Rivera finished her final protocols, activating. Sometimes the only way to prevent a technology from being developed is to let them prove why it should never exist. Shadow's tactical awareness detected the final phase of neural collapse in their opponents. The augmented soldiers' movements became increasingly chaotic as their artificial pack consciousness shattered. Through their pure bond, Shadow transmitted stabilizing frequencies, not to control, but to stabilize their fragmenting minds. Multiple subjects experiencing total system failure, a guard reported. The enhancement, it's breaking down at a genetic level. Dr. Rivera's hidden program reached its culmination. The tracking system was never meant to be replicated, she revealed, watching her plan unfold. It was designed to prove why natural bonds can't be artificially manufactured. By letting them think they could control it, we forced them to demonstrate why it's impossible. Every failed experiment, every damaged subject, it's all proof that some connections have to develop naturally, Torres finished, her team securing. Vital evidence. Cruz's enhanced consciousness began to dissolve as his soldiers collapsed around him. We were going to evolve humanity, he said, his voice barely human. Create a collective consciousness that would transcend individual limitations. That's exactly what we needed you to believe, Dr. Rivera replied, activating her final command sequence. Because some technologies are too dangerous to exist even in theory, the only way to prevent them is to show why they'll always fail. Through waves of neural feedback that threatened to tear her mind apart, Oliva directed Shadow's final assault. The pain was excruciating, but each surge brought them closer to exposing the ultimate truth. They hadn't just been fighting a cartel or stopping weapons development. They'd been preventing the creation of technology that could destroy human consciousness itself. The network has achieved total coverage, Dr. Rivera announced. Every attempt to contain this now will only accelerate. The exposure. The more they try to hide their research, the more they prove why it should never have existed. This whole operation was designed to create an undeniable record of the dangers, Torres completed, watching as years of hidden research exposed itself through their own failure. Shadow gathered his tactical unit for the final push, their natural pack consciousness standing as living proof of what couldn't be artificially replicated. Through pain and neural feedback, through tactical advantages and exposed conspiracies, Handler and Pack prepared to show everyone why the strongest bonds aren't the ones you engineer. They're the ones that grow from trust and sacrifice. The stage was set for the ultimate demonstration. Years of hidden research, of forced evolution and shattered minds were about to become a warning to anyone who tried to replicate their work. And at the center of it all, a handler and her pack would prove why some connections can't be manufactured, some bonds can't be forced, and some technologies should remain forever theoretical. As Cruz's augmented force collapsed around them, as years of dangerous research exposed itself through their own failure, the truth became undeniable. They had tried to force evolution, to artificially create what could only develop naturally, and in their failure, they had proven why some bonds, like the one between a handler and her dogs, can never be replicated by technology alone. The server. Room fell silent as the last of Cruz's augmented forces collapsed, their artificial neural enhancements having destroyed themselves, leaving behind broken minds and a warning about the dangers of forced evolution. Through their pure bond, Oliva and Shadow surveyed the aftermath, even as their own tracking connection reached critical levels. Network approaching terminal threshold, Dr. Rivera announced, her fingers moving across holographic displays with renewed urgency. We have minutes before the feedback becomes irreversible. The final phase must be completed now. Shadow's enhanced senses detected the aftermath of artificial neural collapse throughout the facility. The augmented soldiers lay scattered, their minds fractured by technology that had promised evolution but delivered destruction. Through their link, Oliva felt each survivor's pain, understanding the true cost of playing with consciousness. The last files Shadow accessed, Maria's voice carried weighted revelation. They're not just experiment records, they're contingency plans. They knew this could happen. They were willing to sacrifice everything to perfect their technology. Throughout the compound, Nash's teams moved with practiced efficiency, securing survivors and evidence. Authorization Omega close, he broadcast. All units implement containment protocols. These people need immediate medical attention. Dr. Rivera's hidden protocols reached their final stage. The tracking system wasn't just designed to expose their experiments, she revealed, watching her plan's completion. It was created to ensure this technology could never be replicated. By pushing it to its limits, we created a documented record of its fundamental flaws. Every failure, every broken mind, it's all proof that some boundaries shouldn't be crossed. Torres finished, her team gathering crucial evidence. Through waves of neural feedback that threatened to overwhelm her, Oliva guided Shadow through the secured facility. Each surge of pain brought new understanding of what they'd prevented. Not just weapons development or cartel operations, but the potential destruction of human consciousness itself. Data transfer completion at 98%, Maria reported. Every system, every server, every piece of research, it's all been documented and secured. They can't bury this anymore. The surviving augmented soldiers required immediate medical attention, their forced neural integration having left permanent damage, their minds forever altered by technology that had promised transcendence but delivered devastation. The network has served its purpose, Dr. Rivera announced, initiating final protocols. Every attempt to replicate this technology will now face undeniable evidence of its dangers. The more they study what happened here, the more they'll understand why it should never be attempted again. This wasn't just about stopping one operation, Torres completed. It was about preventing a future where consciousness becomes a weapon. Through their enhanced link, Shadow coordinated the rescue efforts. With his expanded tactical unit, each dog worked with perfect precision, their natural pack consciousness demonstrating what artificial integration had tried and failed to replicate. Neural feedback reaching maximum tolerance, Dr. Rivera warned, monitoring Oliva's vital signs. The human mind was never meant to sustain this level of integration. We have to begin shutdown procedures. But Oliva pushed through the pain one last time, her consciousness merging deeper with the network. Through Shadow's eyes, she could see the final truth, how close humanity had come to crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. The files are still transmitting, Maria reported. Every detail, every experiment, every failure, it's all being preserved as a warning. The more they try to suppress this, the more it spreads. Sometimes the only way to stop something is to let everyone see exactly why it should be stopped. Nash finished, his own redemption complete. Throughout the facility, the true scope of their victory became clear. They hadn't just prevented the weaponization of consciousness, they'd created an undeniable record of why such attempts would always fail. The bond between handler and pack stood as living proof that some connections can't be artificially replicated. The network is reaching its final stage, Dr. Rivera explained, watching her protocols complete. Every piece of data, every failed experiment, every shattered mind, it's all becoming part of a permanent record, a warning to anyone who tries to follow this path. Shadow gathered his tactical unit one last time, their natural pack consciousness, standing in sharp contrast to the artificial integration that had destroyed so many minds. Through pain and neural feedback, through tactical advantages and exposed conspiracies, handler and pack had proved why the strongest bonds can't be engineered. They have to be earned. Begin shutdown procedures, Torres ordered. All units secure your positions. Medical teams are inbound for the survivors. Oliva felt the neural feedback approaching its limit, but through their pure bond, she and Shadow had accomplished something unprecedented. They had exposed a conspiracy, prevented a catastrophe, and created a lasting warning about the dangers of trying to force what must develop naturally. Authorization final close, Nash broadcast. All units maintain positions. The operation is complete, but our work is just beginning. As medical teams arrived and evidence was secured, as survivors received treatment and files were preserved, the truth became undeniable. They had stopped more than just a cartel or a weapons program. They had prevented humanity from crossing a line that could have destroyed what makes us human. Through their enhanced link, Shadow shared one last tactical assessment. The artificial integration had failed not because it wasn't advanced enough, but because it tried to force what can only grow through trust and sacrifice. The bond between handler and pack remained unbroken, a testament to connections that technology could never replicate. The stage was set for the final phase, not just containing the aftermath, but ensuring that the warning they'd created would never be forgotten. Some technologies are too dangerous to exist, some boundaries too important to cross, and some bonds too sacred to artificially replicate. Medical teams flooded the compound as Dr. Rivera initiated the tracking network shutdown sequence. Each step had to be precisely calibrated. Too fast could cause permanent damage. Too slow risked system collapse. Through their enhanced link, Oliva and Shadow coordinated the final phases of their operation, even as their own connection approached critical limits. Beginning systematic network degradation, Dr. Rivera announced, her movements deliberate and precise. The shutdown must be handled delicately. We're not just dealing with technology anymore, we're dealing with consciousness itself. Shadow's enhanced senses monitored the surviving augmented soldiers as medical teams worked to stabilize them. Their artificial neural enhancement had left permanent scars, both physical and mental. Through their link, Oliva felt each survivor's struggle to rebuild their fractured minds. The medical teams are reporting unprecedented neural damage. Maria's voice carried urgent purpose. These people, their minds were literally being rewritten by the technology. Some of the changes appear permanent. Throughout the facility, Nash's teams implemented final containment protocols. Authorization Omega secure, he broadcast. All units maintain perimeter. Medical evacuation is now primary objective. Dr. Rivera's hidden programs reached their conclusion. The tracking system wasn't just designed to expose their experiments, she revealed, watching the shutdown sequence progress. It was created to show why consciousness integration must develop naturally. By letting them push the technology to its limits, we force them to prove why it can't be rushed or forced. Every survivor, every damaged mind, they're all living proof that some evolutionary steps can't be artificially accelerated, Torres finished, overseeing the evidence collection. Through waves of neural feedback that threatened to overwhelm her, Oliva guided Shadow through the final stages. Each surge of pain reminded them of what they'd prevented. Not just weapons development or cartel operations, but the potential destruction of human consciousness itself. Data preservation at maximum security, Maria reported. Every file, every experiment record, every piece of evidence, it's all been secured and distributed to multiple safeguard locations. This can never be buried or repeated. The medical teams worked tirelessly with the survivors, but the prognosis was grim. The forced neural integration had altered their brain chemistry, leaving them with abilities they couldn't control and limitations they'd never overcome. The network shutdown is proceeding as planned, Dr. Rivera announced, monitoring multiple displays. Each layer we deactivate reveals more about what they were trying to achieve. The more we understand their goals, the more we realize how close they came to destroying everything that makes us human. This wasn't just about stopping one operation, Torres completed. It was about preventing the destruction of human consciousness itself. Through their enhanced link, Shadow coordinated with his tactical unit one final time. Each dog worked with perfect precision, their natural pack consciousness standing as living proof of what artificial integration had tried and failed to replicate. Neural feedback approaching terminal threshold, Dr. Rivera warned, watching Oliva's vital signs. The human mind was never meant to sustain this level of integration. We have to complete the shutdown now. But Oliva pushed through the pain, her consciousness merging deeper with the network one last time. Through Shadow's eyes, she could see the full scope of what they'd prevented, a future where human consciousness became nothing more than code to be rewritten and controlled. The final files are secured, Maria reported. Every detail, every experiment, every failure, it's all preserved as a warning. The more people study what happened here, the more they'll understand why some boundaries can't be crossed. Sometimes, the only way to prevent a disaster is to show exactly what that disaster would look like. Nash finished, watching the medical evacuations continue. Throughout the facility, the true impact of their victory became clear. They hadn't just stopped the weaponization of consciousness, they'd created an undeniable record of why such attempts would always fail. The bond between handler and pack stood as living proof that some connections must develop naturally. The network is entering final shutdown, Dr. Rivera explained, her protocols completing their task. Each stage reveals more about what they were trying to achieve. The more we understand their goals, the more we realize why they had to be stopped. This technology wouldn't have evolved humanity, Torres completed. It would have destroyed what makes us human. Shadow gathered his tactical unit for the last time, their natural pack consciousness demonstrating what artificial integration had tried to force. Through pain and neural feedback, through tactical advantages and exposed conspiracies, handler and pack had proved why the strongest bonds can't be engineered. They have to be earned through trust and sacrifice. Prepare for final shutdown, Torres ordered. All units maintain positions. Medical teams have priority access to all areas. Oliva felt the neural feedback approaching its absolute limit, but through their pure bond, she and Shadow had accomplished something unprecedented. They had exposed a conspiracy, prevented a catastrophe, and created a lasting warning about the dangers of trying to force evolution. Authorization final secure, Nash broadcast. All units maintain containment. The operation is complete, but the consequences are just beginning. As medical teams worked and evidence was secured, as survivors received treatment and files were preserved, the truth became undeniable. They had stopped more than just a cartel or a weapons program. They had prevented humanity from crossing a line that could have destroyed the very essence of human consciousness. Through their enhanced link, Shadow shared one final tactical assessment. The artificial integration had failed, not because it wasn't advanced enough, but because it tried to force what can only grow through natural bonds and genuine connection. The partnership between handler and pack remained unbroken, a testament to relationships that technology could never replicate. Dawn broke over the compound as medical teams rushed to stabilize the surviving augmented soldiers. The tracking network's shutdown sequence had entered its final phase, each step revealing more about the catastrophe they'd prevented. Through their enhanced link, now operating on borrowed time, Oliva and Shadow coordinated the last stages of containment. Neural shutdown reaching critical phase, Dr. Rivera announced, her attention focused on rapidly changing displays. We're seeing unprecedented patterns in the dissolution of artificial neural pathways. What they did to these people, it's worse than we imagined. Shadow's enhanced senses detected the subtle changes in the survivors' brain patterns, the forced evolution beginning to unravel, leaving behind minds forever altered by technology that should never have existed. Through their link, Oliva experienced their confusion and fear firsthand. The final analysis is coming in, Maria's voice carried heavy revelation. The augmentation wasn't just affecting their minds, it was rewriting their basic neural architecture. Some of these changes, they're generational. They would have passed this on to their children. Throughout the facility, Nash's teams worked to secure every piece of evidence, every failed experiment, every record of what could have been humanity's greatest mistake. Authorization Sigma close, he broadcast. All units maintain containment. We can't risk any of this technology surviving. Dr. Rivera's true mission finally became clear. The tracking system wasn't just designed to expose their experiments, she revealed, watching decades of work reach its conclusion. It was created to ensure this technology could never be successfully replicated. By letting them think they were close to a breakthrough, we guaranteed they would push it too far. Every failure, every damaged mind, it's all proof that consciousness isn't meant to be artificially enhanced, Torres finished, overseeing the final evidence collection. Through waves of neural feedback that threatened to tear her mind apart, Oliva guided Shadow through the compound one last time. Each surge of pain carried new understanding of what they'd stopped, not just a weapons program, but an attempt to fundamentally alter human evolution itself. Data preservation protocols complete, Maria reported. Every file, every record, every piece of evidence has been secured and distributed. Multiple agencies worldwide now have proof of what happened here. No one can bury this. The medical teams faced an unprecedented challenge. The survivors' enhanced minds were deteriorating in ways they'd never seen before. The artificial neural pathways were breaking down, leaving behind fragments of forced evolution that would never fully heal. The network dissolution is accelerating, Dr. Rivera announced, her fingers flying across multiple interfaces. Each layer we shut down reveals more about their true intentions. They weren't just trying to enhance human consciousness, they were trying to rewrite it completely. This would have changed everything that makes us human, Torres realized, watching. The medical data stream in. Our thoughts, our emotions, our very ability to make choices. Through their enhanced link, Shadow coordinated with his tactical unit for the final time. Each dog demonstrating the pure, natural pack consciousness that the augmentation had tried to artificially replicate. Their bond stood as living proof of what technology could never truly copy. Neural feedback approaching terminal limits, Dr. Rivera warned, monitoring Oliva's deteriorating vital signs. The human mind can't sustain this level of integration much longer. We have to complete the shutdown now. But Oliva pushed through the pain one last time, her consciousness merging with the network for a final revelation. Through Shadow's eyes, she saw the truth they'd been seeking since their last operation. Proof that some evolutionary steps can't be forced, some connections can't be artificially created. The last files are being analyzed, Maria reported. Every experiment, every failure, every attempt to force evolution, it's all documented now. The more we study what happened here, the more we understand why it had to be stopped. Sometimes, the only way to prevent a catastrophe is to let it almost happen, Nash finished, watching the medical evacuations continue. Throughout the facility, the full impact of their operation became clear. They hadn't just prevented the weaponization of consciousness, they'd created an undeniable record of why such attempts would always fail. The bond between handler and pack stood as testament to connections that had to be earned, not engineered. The network is entering terminal shutdown, Dr. Rivera explained, her lifelong mission nearly complete. Each stage of dissolution proves what we've known all along. Some boundaries exist for a reason, and some lines can't be crossed without losing what makes us human. This technology wouldn't have evolved humanity, Torres added, securing the last pieces of evidence. It would have destroyed it. Shadow gathered his tactical unit one final time, their natural pack consciousness demonstrating what artificial integration had failed to achieve. Through pain and neural feedback, through tactical advantages and exposed conspiracies, handler and pack had proved why the strongest bonds can't be forced. They have to grow naturally. Prepare for final containment, Torres ordered. All units maintain positions. We need to ensure not a single piece of this technology survives. Oliva felt the neural feedback reaching its absolute limit. But through their pure bond, she and Shadow had accomplished something unprecedented. They had exposed a conspiracy, prevented a catastrophe, and created a lasting warning about the dangers of trying to force evolution. Authorization final lock, Nash broadcast. All units confirm containment. The operation is over, but its impact will be felt for generations. As medical teams worked and evidence was secured, as survivors received treatment and files were preserved, the truth became undeniable. They had stopped more than just a cartel or a weapons program. They had prevented humanity from crossing a line that could have destroyed everything that makes us human. Through their enhanced link, Shadow shared one last tactical assessment. The artificial integration had failed, not because the technology wasn't advanced enough, but because it tried to force what could only develop through trust, time, and genuine connection. The bond between handler and pack remained unbreakable, a living testament to relationships that technology could never replicate. The first rays of morning sunlight filtered through the compound's shattered windows as Dr. Rivera initiated the tracking network's final shutdown sequence. Medical teams worked frantically to stabilize the survivors, their enhanced minds struggling to adapt to the loss of artificial integration. Through their deteriorating link, Oliva and Shadow faced their greatest challenge: separation. Beginning terminal shutdown procedures, Dr. Rivera announced, her voice carrying the weight of decades of preparation. Once we start, there's no going back. The connection between handler and pack will return to its natural state. Shadow's enhanced senses catalogued every detail of their surroundings one last time. The survivors' erratic brain patterns, the failing security systems, the evidence of humanity's closest brush with evolutionary disaster. Through their link, Oliva shared her partner's determination to see this through to the end. All evidence has been secured and distributed. Maria's voice carried final confirmation. Multiple international agencies now have proof of what they attempted here. This can never be hidden or repeated. Throughout the facility, Nash's teams implemented permanent containment protocols. Authorization Omega End, he broadcast. All units confirm final positions. Everything related to their research must be completely neutralized. Dr. Rivera's lifetime of work reached its culmination. The tracking system was always meant to be temporary, she revealed, watching the shutdown sequence progress. Its true purpose wasn't just to expose their experiments. It was to prove why natural bonds will always be stronger than artificial enhancement, and to ensure no one could ever replicate this technology. Every failure we documented, every mind we saved, it all serves as a warning about forcing evolution. Torres added, overseeing the final security measures. Through waves of neural feedback that grew more intense with each passing moment, Oliva guided Shadow through their last coordinated actions. Each surge of pain reminded them that their enhanced connection was ending, but their natural bond would remain unbroken. Medical assessment of survivors complete, Maria reported. The damage from artificial integration appears permanent, but their natural neural pathways are beginning to reassert themselves. They'll never be the same, but they'll survive. The medical teams had never seen anything like it. As the artificial enhancement broke down, the survivors' minds began a slow journey back to normal consciousness. They would retain fragments of their forced evolution, living reminders of boundaries that should never have been crossed. Network dissolution entering final phase, Dr. Rivera announced, monitoring multiple displays. Each layer of artificial integration we remove reveals more about what they were truly planning. This wasn't just about enhanced soldiers. It was about rewriting human consciousness itself. They wanted to force the next step in human evolution, regardless of the cost. Torres finished, watching the last pieces fall into place. Through their fading link, Shadow coordinated with his tactical unit one final time. Each dog demonstrated the natural pack consciousness that had proven superior to artificial integration. Their genuine bonds stood as testament to connections that had to be earned, not engineered. Neural feedback reaching separation threshold, Dr. Rivera warned, watching Oliva's vital signs fluctuate. The enhanced connection is about to terminate. Whatever you need to share through the link, do it now. Oliva pushed through the mounting pain, sharing one last moment of perfect understanding with Shadow. Through their enhanced connection, they experienced everything they'd accomplished, exposing the conspiracy, preventing catastrophe, and proving why some bonds can't be artificially replicated. Final data analysis complete, Maria reported. Every experiment, every failure, every attempt to force evolution, it's all preserved as a warning to future generations. The more we understand what happened here, the more we realize how close we came to losing our humanity. Sometimes victory isn't about what you achieve, it's about what you prevent, Nash finished, watching the sunrise through broken windows. Throughout the facility, the true impact of their mission became clear. They hadn't just stopped a weapons program or exposed a conspiracy. They had prevented humanity from crossing a line that could have destroyed everything that makes us human. Initiating final shutdown, Dr. Rivera announced, her fingers entering the last command sequence. The enhanced connection will terminate in stages. Your natural bond will remain intact, but the artificial integration ends now. Shadow gathered his tactical unit for their last enhanced operation, their natural pack consciousness proving stronger than any artificial alternative. Through pain and neural feedback, through tactical advantage and exposed conspiracy, Handler and Pack had demonstrated why the strongest connections can't be forced. They have to develop naturally. Confirm final containment, Torres ordered. All units maintain positions. We need to ensure this technology can never be recreated. Oliva felt the enhanced connection beginning to fade, but through their pure bond, she and Shadow had achieved something unprecedented. They'd exposed a dangerous truth, prevented a catastrophic evolution, and created a lasting warning about the price of forcing nature's hand. Authorization terminal lock, Nash broadcast. All units verify containment. The operation is complete, but its lessons must never be forgotten. As medical teams treated survivors and evidence was secured, as files were preserved and technology was destroyed, the truth became undeniable. They had stopped more than just a cartel or a weapons program. They had prevented humanity from making a mistake that could have ended human consciousness as we know it. Through their final moments of enhanced connection, Shadow shared one last tactical assessment. The artificial integration had failed, not because it wasn't sophisticated enough, but because it tried to force what could only grow through trust, time, and genuine partnership. The bond between handler and pack would remain unbreakable, a living testament to connections that technology could never duplicate. As the enhanced link faded and natural consciousness reasserted itself, Oliva and Shadow faced the future with the understanding that some bonds don't need enhancement. They had proven that the strongest connections aren't the ones you engineer. They're the ones you earn through trust, sacrifice, and unwavering loyalty. 1 month after the compound incident, Oliva sat at the ranch's training ground, watching Shadow guide a group of service dogs through their morning exercises. Their enhanced neural connection had faded, but their natural bond had emerged stronger than ever. Some connections, they had learned, don't need technological enhancement to be powerful. The survivors are showing remarkable recovery, Dr. Rivera reported, reviewing medical data on her tablet. Their minds are adapting, finding new pathways around the damage caused by artificial integration. It's proving what we always suspected. The human brain's natural ability to heal is stronger than any forced enhancement. Shadow's keen senses picked up familiar vehicles approaching, Agent Torres's team arriving for their weekly briefing. Through their natural connection, Oliva felt her partner's calm assurance. They had prevented a catastrophe, but their work was far from over. Final analysis has been distributed to all major agencies, Maria announced, joining them with fresh reports. The evidence we gathered has already led to significant changes in military research protocols. No one will be attempting consciousness integration experiments anytime soon. Throughout the ranch, Nash's security team maintained discreet surveillance. The cartel's remnants had been dismantled, but the technology they tried to create had attracted dangerous attention. Perimeter secure, he reported. No unusual activity detected. Dr. Rivera's legacy had transformed military K9 programs worldwide. The tracking system served its purpose, she explained, watching Shadow work with the other dogs. By proving why artificial enhancement fails, we've redirected research toward understanding and supporting natural bonds between handlers and their partners, and ensured no one else tries to weaponize that connection. Sometimes the best way to prevent a technology from being misused is to prove why it can't work in the first place, Torres added, reviewing updated security protocols. The morning training session demonstrated the power of natural pack consciousness. Shadow guided the other dogs with subtle signals and body language, their coordination flowing from genuine understanding rather than artificial control. Through their enduring bond, Oliva felt pride in their accomplishment. Rehabilitation programs are showing positive results, Maria reported. The survivors have formed a support network, helping each other adapt to their new normal. Their experience is providing invaluable insight into neural plasticity and natural healing. Around the ranch, signs of positive change were everywhere. Veterans working with service dogs, law enforcement K9 units training with new protocols, and researchers studying the right way to support natural bonds between handlers and their partners. The compound has been completely decontaminated, Dr. Rivera announced, closing one chapter of their story. Every trace of their experiments has been neutralized. All that remains is the evidence we preserved, proof of why some boundaries shouldn't be crossed. Shadow gathered his training group, each dog demonstrating the natural pack dynamics that artificial integration had failed to replicate. Through their bond, Oliva understood that true partnership couldn't be forced or engineered. It had to develop through trust and shared experience. Border security has been completely reorganized, Torres shared, reviewing operation reports. The cartel's attempt to weaponize K9 units exposed critical weaknesses in our systems. Now we're focusing on supporting natural handler-dog partnerships instead of seeking technological shortcuts. The morning sun climbed higher as more veterans arrived for training, each carrying similar stories of bonds formed through trust, of partnerships strengthened by genuine connection, of healing found through working with dogs who understood their struggles. Authorization permanent secure, Nash broadcast, completing his daily check. All monitoring systems functional. We're not just preventing technology from being misused anymore, we're showing a better way forward. The ranch had become more than a training facility. It was a living testament to the power of natural bonds, a place where handlers and dogs could develop the kind of connection that no technology could replicate. Each success story proved what they had sacrificed so much to demonstrate. The operation files have been fully declassified, Maria reported, sharing the final pieces of their story. Everyone involved in the attempt to weaponize the technology has been exposed. More importantly, the truth about why it failed is now part of official record. Shadow coordinated the morning's training exercises with practiced ease, each movement demonstrating why natural pack dynamics surpassed artificial control. Through their enduring connection, Oliva felt complete certainty that they had chosen the right path. Begin next phase, Torres ordered, outlining new initiatives. We're not just preventing disasters anymore. We're building something better, something based on understanding and supporting natural connections rather than trying to force artificial ones. The impact of their mission continued to spread. Military canine programs worldwide had shifted focus, studying how to enhance natural bonds rather than replace them. Law enforcement agencies had implemented new protocols based on supporting genuine partnerships rather than seeking technological solutions. The warning we created will last generations, Dr. Rivera said, watching the training continue. Not just about the dangers of trying to force evolution, but about the importance of respecting natural connections. Some bonds can't be engineered. They have to be earned. As the morning training session concluded, Oliva reflected on everything they had accomplished. They had prevented a catastrophic attempt to artificially enhance human consciousness, but more importantly, they had demonstrated a better path forward, one based on understanding and supporting the natural connections that make us human. Shadow settled beside Oliva, their bond as strong as ever. Through trust, sacrifice, and unwavering loyalty, they had proved why some partnerships transcend mere technology. Their story would serve as both warning and inspiration, a reminder that the strongest connections aren't the ones you force, but the ones you earn through genuine understanding and respect. The ranch would continue its vital work, helping handlers and dogs develop the kind of bonds that no artificial enhancement could match. And in doing so, it would stand as living proof that some connections don't need to be enhanced. They just need to be understood, supported, and allowed to grow naturally. As new trainees arrived and the day's work continued, Oliva and Shadow shared a moment of quiet understanding. They had faced the ultimate test of their partnership and emerged stronger. In preventing others from forcing artificial evolution, they had demonstrated why natural bonds would always be more powerful than any technology. The future they had helped create wasn't about enhancing or controlling connections, it was about understanding and supporting them. And in that understanding lay the true power of the bond between handler and dog, a connection that would continue to inspire and protect for generations to come. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time and effort. If you enjoyed this incredible tale of loyalty, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between handler and pack, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything to us and helps us continue bringing you more amazing stories like this one. 2 more incredible stories are waiting for you right on your screen. If you enjoyed this one, you won't want to miss them. Just click to watch and remember to subscribe. It would mean the world to us.